Next time you're in Dollar Tree, head on over to the Crafter Squares section and grab you some of these large wood plaques. I picked up this one, it was $3, and we're going to transform it into a set of floating wall pockets. I know, people, it sounds weird. How are we making a set? We just got one. Roll on with me here. First, we need to take the tag off the back. I know so many of you love when I remove tags off things. And because sometimes it triggers a lot of y'all when I just paint over something like this instead of sanding it, I really want to paint over it just to trigger you some more. For those of you that feel the need to make the comments in the comments, why didn't y'all just sand it off? Can you let me know why it bothers you so much when maybe I'm giving other people options that don't have access to outdoors to go sand things because they don't want debris floating around their house? Maybe they just want to paint over it. Let me know. Girl just likes giving options to her community, and some of y'all can't handle that. Now, I busted out my little tape measure here to find the center of this piece so we could then chop it in half, y'all. Yeah, we're going to bust out the big girl tools today. So I wanted to make sure this is fairly even. I rarely ever measure things, but for this project, I only had one, and I wanted to make sure that I had this straight and centered. So we had two pieces that were the same size. I took it outside where I set up my miter saw and just cut that sucker right in half. Now that they're all cut in half, we have to create that pocket effect. And we're gonna kind of do that from the back because these are the fronts, if that makes sense. We're going to use some Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks to help us with that. Y'all, I don't like these ones. I'm just saying, I like the ones that are all natural. They're easier to paint and all the things. I don't like the two-tone ones. Can we pass on that information? These are more difficult to craft with, at least in my opinion. Anyhow, I grabbed all the natural looking ones, okay, and I created that pocket effect so I can shove stuff down in there. And to attach our pieces, we're going to use some Type-On Quick and Thick and some hot glue so I can get that long lasting hold and a quick hold. And if you want to make your pocket thicker, you go right ahead. I was fine with the skinny pocket. I figured the florals that I'm going to shove in this are gonna fit, and I might put some fairy lights in here. I hadn't decided at this point what I was doing, but I had decided that I was gonna need two different size popsicle sticks to create our brace and our hanger on the back of here. And to attach them, we're gonna need to bring on in our stapler. And I mean, we're gonna use some Type-On Quick and Thick too, but I mean, we definitely need the stapler for this part, at least in my opinion. If you wanna use hot glue, you do you. I also brought out my metal cutting shears, not wire cutting, metal cutting shears to trim down the popsicle sticks as I traced everything and put into place. If you want to cut anything down and do a whole backing on your piece, you go right ahead. I decided to use the popsicle sticks for the main brace and then trim out the sides and put one right across the center and make little slits in mine so I can put nails on the wall and they will sit right in there. This way, if again, I wasn't sure if I was going to put fairy lights in it, but I wanted it to be able to glow around the piece. So I didn't want to completely close the whole back in. Okay, this is where my mind was going. I was going multi-purpose here. If I wanted to add fairy lights, you know, you see us wiggling it. Everything was held together well. Now, I could leave the front bare, but I didn't want to do that. So I decided to create some texture paste. I needed a little batch. I didn't have any fresh in my stash. So I went and grabbed my baking soda and my calcium carbonate. And yes, y'all, I buy this stuff in bulk because I do this for a living and I go through it. You guys do not have to buy it in bulk. This is just how I roll on with it, okay? And I'm measuring with love, y'all. Measuring with love with a popsicle stick. I'm not even measuring with love with the tablespoon thing. I'm just eyeballing it, shaking it around like this is good. And then good old Elmer's glue, y'all. Just a couple little squirts, little squirty squirts up in there. A little mixy. And we got ourselves some texture paste. Obviously, make it as thick as you want, make it as thin as you want. Let this dry a couple hours and you can absolutely paint this or seal over it, or you can put paint in your mix. It will tint it, completely up to you. Very, very versatile. I love this stuff. Now, don't be judging me and my dirty stencil that I was too lazy to clean whenever the last time I used it was, which I don't know. And I got this off Amazon in case anyone was wondering. All right, let me explain something to you. It's still gonna work. All right, it's still gonna work. So, I mean, if you don't feel like cleaning your stencils every time, it's still gonna work. You can clean them months or years later. It's fine. I smeared a nice little layer of the texture paste over top of the piece and made sure to trim off the sections with the masking tape. I didn't want to have our texture paste on. I think this turned out so pretty, and I did the opposite side on our other piece. I let this dry for about 3 hours, y'all, about 3 hours, and it was good to go. I tested it with my fingernail. I did a little tap, 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 and then came back in with some antique Waverly wax and put a nice layer all over this and allowed it to dry for another 3 to 4 hours. I want to pull back the wax just a little bit around where we have our raised stencil, so this way it pops. Now, I don't want to sand it down because I don't want the white to pop out of the texture paste. I want that wax to just be lighter in that area so our design pops out. So I'm just spraying it with a little bit of water. I'm not oversaturating it, taking a napkin and going over it. If you got a baby wipe, you could absolutely do that too. And I really love how this helps bring that design out. So I did decide to add in some of them fairy lights at the last minute. But I also really like the way that this looks without the fairy lights. Y'all have to let me know in the comments which one you prefer. And y'all, you cannot tell these came from Dollar Tree. We're going to take this large oval wood plaque that I picked up from Dollar Tree for just $3 and turn it into a table centerpiece. And to do that, we're going to need to start off by doing something I rarely do, but I've been doing a little bit more so than usual with my little tape measure here that my friend Kendra sent me from Late Night Creations. I usually lose all kinds of things around my craft, area, but this little guy has been sticking right with me. So I found the center of our oval and then drew a line straight down lengthwise, like the long section, because we're going to slice our piece in half that way. Then I'm going to take the piece outside and use the miter saw to cut it down. Now my miter saw doesn't actually stretch the whole length of this oval, so I had to be very careful where I cut in the piece because I had to flip it around on the other side and make sure that I had that blade go in the same exact line to make sure it stayed even. If you have to do this at home, be very, 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 very careful. I am not responsible for your crafting mishaps at home, okay? They weren't exactly perfect. One was slightly bigger than the other, but you know what? I'm fine with that. My body's uneven. Not everything's the same size proportionately, so I'm gonna love these pieces like I do myself. And we're gonna add this little palette box in the middle of them. Now, there's a couple different ways you could go about this. I'm, of course, going to be using some Titebond Quick and Thick to get our grip on here. If you want to add in some hot glue, absolutely do that. Just put a little bit on both sides and then glued in between our pieces. It looked like half watermelons, right? Glued in our pieces here. So this way the box was at the bottom end of the bottom of the watermelon. We're not making a watermelon, but I mean, that's what the shape reminds me of. Once I added both sides, I then placed this off to the side to the next day. So this way this could dry before we carried on with the painting and our little additions here. And if you want, you can completely skip this next section. It is entirely up to you. The piece works as it is, but I really wanted to have that palette effect on the side and grab some popsicle sticks to accomplish that. I just cut them down to size using my metal cutting shears and measured each piece. Then I grabbed my wood glue, y'all, and off to the side. I was going to cut this out, but I know some of y'all are weird like me and appreciate stuff like this. It was clogged up, right? And oh my. Look at the size of that thing. Now, why Mod Podge boogers gross me out and that don't, I'll never know. One thing I've learned after years of crafting is that when you have hand grip strength issues, you get tired of constantly squeezing something. So I'll put a little dollop of the glue off to the side. You see how I'm showing you the popsicle stick here? I just tappity tapped each corner to that popsicle stick and got some glue from the corner of the table, and then used my hot glue, put it on opposite sections, and then applied my popsicle sticks on the side to get that palette effect. Because once I fill this, you're not going to see the box in the center. Since there were so many sections to our piece, I thought it would be easiest just to spray paint the piece. Obviously, paint this whatever color works for your decor and your style. The way that this is designed would look amazing putting a mold on each side, a beautiful piece of decoupage paper, or even some transfers. I even thought that this would be a great idea to put some wheels on each side, maybe make a wheelbarrow out of it. You'll have to let me know in the comments if you would have added something. These pieces right here are like unicorns at my Dollar Tree stores. So whenever I see them, I grab more than one. And for this project, we're going to be needing 2 of them. We're going to create a large set of wall shelves. And I'm going to use these in the bathroom, but you can put them wherever you would like. Now, these are thin and they're sketchy, y'all. There's gapping, trying to put them on top of one another. And I didn't want to just use one because I didn't feel that that would be good enough. We're going to bust out my little late night creations tape measure and cut these down so we can attach both of them to create our thicker piece of wood. I measured this so we could cut it exactly down the center. And then I lined them up and attached clamps before taking it outside to cut down with the miter saw. So this way I got an exact cut with both pieces on top of one another. Now, do be careful if you do this at home, especially because my saw did not go through both of these. You could use a jigsaw, that would probably make life a whole lot easier, but I decided to do it like this. Feel free to take the information and do what works best for you. Now, I had these little 1x2s and my stash, and I wanted to use them for the larger bottom shelf because I did have the thinner Dollar Tree pieces that you'll see in a second, and I'm using them for the top part of the shelf because we're going to have 2 shelves, one to be thinner, one to be thicker. Once I had all the shelf pieces cut down to size, I then took my Titebond Quick and Thick and applied a nice layer all over these pieces. And then I just took the pieces, put them right back on top of each other, and I allowed this to dry overnight. I do feel like I needed more clamps to get an accurate closure around the entire piece. There were so many little bowed sections that was causing it to pop up. Once I put another clamp on, it was like another spot opened up. It was a jolly good time. And you'll be able to see right here that after I let this dry the whole next day and took the clamps off, there were little spots where, you know, there were some gaps. People, keep in mind, you can take this idea and remix it. You could go get solid pieces of wood from Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever and take this idea and create it. But I'm using Dollar Tree supplies, and this is what that takes. I'm taking a little bit of my texture paste and just smooshing it right on into these teeny tiny holes. Now, definitely recommend using spackling or something else other than the texture paste because that shrinks just a smidge, especially when you're trying to fill it with something. But I wasn't too concerned. I knew I was using Antique Waverly wax on this and it was going to cover it. I wasn't too worried about it. And here's me showing you the difference between the Dollar Tree piece at the top and the 2x3 that I had in my stash from Home Depot. For this next part, I'm going to bring on in the drill. Now you can see it bringing in the drill. You can use just glue and do it however you would like, but I'm going to bring in the drill and a drill bit to place little holes in the bottom where we're going to attach our shelf. And I'm going to do just one in the center at the top for the thin shelf. And I made sure to grab a thin drill bit that will fit through the Dollar Tree pieces of wood because they're thin, y'all. So we're going to use really thin screws, okay? Really little joints to get in there. On a normal, I'd probably, wait to paint this thing or use my wax until I've got it all together. But this particular day, I decided let's do each individual piece and I just stained it up. Feel free to use whatever color you would like. This is just what I wanted to do. I'm using a baby wipe to apply everything. If you want to seal over these pieces, you absolutely can. I just left mine how they were and went and grabbed my sawtooth hammer and hanger nails. I love using these. It's a 1, 2, 3 situation here. You grab your hammer, a little tappity tap tap tap, and that sucker is in and you're able to hang it on the wall. Then I grabbed these little Gorilla Glue gel adhesive things. I usually use these on the back of my coasters, but since I don't have anything on the bottom and don't want to scuff up my walls, I feel like that will help give me a nice little brace at the bottom of our shelf here. I flipped the shelf over on the front and then just added some hot glue. I know, me, right? Just using hot glue, but we are going to be putting screws in the back here. This was kind of just to keep them in place while I put the little screws in the back. Then I added my rustic vintage accents onto these pieces and put them in the bathroom. I absolutely adore how these turned out. You cannot tell that this was created using Dollar Tree items and they look so timeless in the space. I also think another really good way to utilize these would be to put a hanger underneath that last shelf and put these in an entryway so you could put your keys on them. Out of all the large wood plaque styles that they have at Dollar Tree right now for $3, this design is probably my favorite. And I thought this piece would look amazing as a large riser. Now there's a ton of ways that you can create risers, but of course I'm me and we're gonna decoupage on this piece using some good old Mod Podge and one of my TDS creative fan brushes. Now I want to use the iron on method with this piece and we're gonna plop a nice thick juicy layer of that Mod Podge on here and I'm gonna let this sit overnight. Once it dries, it will be completely clear and then we'll be able to iron on whatever we would like to put on here. I'm going to be using my TDS Creative A4 in size rice paper print. Now, before y'all go rushing over to my website, thediystruggle.com, if it's before June 14th, this piece might not be available yet. I know, listen, it is one of my new release pieces with my summer collection and I just had to use it, all right? I just had to use it. Now we're gonna bring on in my mini iron and I am using this little Cricut joint. Y'all can use whatever iron you would like and I always use the highest setting. Again, do what works best for you. Then we're going to bring on in the parchment paper. And I don't know, do I give this music? I can't remember. Y'all let me know in the comments below if we, if not, I don't know that it deserves music, but anyway, parchment paper. And y'all, it's just a great value stuff. Okay. It's nothing, you feel what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be the name brand. And I often get asked, like, do I use a shiny side? I can't tell the difference between the shiny or the matte. I just lay it down and utilize it. Okay. Before you go doing that, make sure you have your piece exactly where you want it because you get no shots at this. The second that hot surface touches that paper, it is melted onto your piece and you are just done. So make sure that you have that exactly where you want it. I like to start from one side to the next. Some people go all over there and blah, blah, blah. I have experienced that sometimes if I go all around the edges and then come to the center, there may be a bubble in the center of my paper. So it's been my experience that I just have the best results if I go from one side to the next with my ironing. Now, I also do this quickly here, but I spend about 5 to 10 minutes actually ironing that off camera. And then I'll come back and lift it up like you see me doing here. Make sure that it's completely adhered all around our piece. Once I'm happy with the attachment, I'll then just grab a little piece of sandpaper and I'll go all around the edges. Now, it's a really good idea to take your sandpaper and go straight down, like a up and down motion, but you'll see me here going back and forth. And that's because I want it to blend the edges so there was a little bit of that natural wood. I love creating tissue paper or rice paper designs that have that tan hue because I am very partial to decoupaging wood and love to see things blend into wood grain. So this paper does just that. When I was completely happy with that, I grabbed some pegs. I mean, really, I think these are the little people from Dollar Tree, you know what I mean? But to me, I call them pegs. I don't use them for anything else. Then I grabbed some of my Type-On Quick and Thick and my hot glue and just attached them to each one of the little corners on our riser here. One of my moderators loves DIYs Big Top and she sent it to me to use. And this is actually my first time using this product. So I put a nice thin layer on the top. I let this dry for a few hours and then brought it upstairs and put it near the natural light so I could get an angle that you could see that this paper is flawlessly adhered to this wood plaque. Even the little dents are decoupaged in there flawlessly. I love how that natural wood is blending around the edge into the rice paper. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I added another one of my TDS Creative rice paper summer release prints in that little gold frame. And I think it just added the most perfect little accents. You have to let me know if you've come across these at your Dollar Tree ever and what you've created with them. If you're looking for more Dollar Tree inspiration, check out this video right here. And as always, people, thank you all so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Until next time.